The more I watch these episodes from iCarly, the more I learn that the web show being a factor in those episodes in the first 3 or 4 seasons is the highlight of the show in general. The episode iTake On Dingo is where the iCarly gang go to Hollywood to stop the Totally Tilly Wires for stealing their ideas and using them on their show. These episodes is something I was planning to review a long time ago and could have easily been reviewed if I did a marathon of iCarly. One of the reasons why I found this episode unique when it comes to iCarly is the fact that they're teaching people that plagiarizing is awful. Because the Totally Tilly guys is just obviously those washed-up people who just can't think of their own original ideas and decide to steal the ideas from iCarly. And for the majority of the first 3 seasons, the web show has been a major factor when it comes to being hilarious, while also being a major activity of what Carly and her friends do when it comes to their free time. And whenever they go upstairs and completely do an episode for the web show. With this episode, along with other episodes, I've watched this episode so many times to the point that I give a knowledge of how this type of plot works, and the fact that the characters, mainly the Totally Tilly Wires, are obviously out of their league whenever they come up with something original. And whenever we completely see these type of cliches done in a way when it comes to the iCarly web show formula, it actually makes the episode a lot more entertaining than the more I watched it. It's mainly the fact that Carly just wants to make sure that no one is plagiarizing her ideas along with Sam's in her web show, so that no one would confuse the Totally Tilly guys that the iCarly was the one that stole the Totally Tilly Wires ideas. I don't think that there's another episode from another sitcom that does this idea, mainly the fact that iCarly and her friends showcase themselves to do the web show around the world on the internet, and the fact that those writers from a TV channel company is completely stealing those ideas and using them for their own show. For me personally, if we actually did something like this back in 2009, people would instantly take those ideas and then using them as their own. And trust me, I've seen so many people whip off the Angry Video Game Nerd so many times to the point that Angry Video Game Nerd was truly a one-of-a-kind once he was showcasing himself in 2006. Granted, he debuted in 2004, but he was making multiple videos in 2006. As for the Totally Tilly writers, they're obviously the bottom of the barrel writers who can't even figure out how to make shows of their own. For the majority of the show, we keep seeing or hearing the Dingo channel constantly when it comes to the characters watching TV. And in all honesty, this is just basically the bottom of the barrel channels of just trying to show that other writers are just not as good. I mean, the treating this channel worse than the people who thought the idea that making iCarly a TV show was an actual good idea. But when you completely look at more of the episode, well, the characters are not accepting the changes and then turning into something that they did not imagine, yeah, it's honestly really difficult to actually see this episode, whether you completely think about how the show is just making fun of TV writers, just completely making terrible episodes of terrible TV shows that they produce. Spencer's subplot in this episode involves him just trying to find the head of Charles Dingo's frozen head. And considering that it's also in the same building of the Dingo Channel's studio, I can tell that his motivation actually has a purpose when it comes to the main plot of this episode. Considering this is Spencer we're talking about, and he's mostly interested into seeing things behind closed doors in situations like these, you really should expect him to actually do this type of stunt in order to find the head of Charles Dingo. And for me personally, the scenes of him is actually kind of humorous. Well, him and Freddy goes into the freezer and actually saw the heads of Charles Dingo, which they said that they blinked at them. And in all honesty, if I was in that freezer, I would probably be freaked out to actually see a frozen head inside of a freezer that also blinks. And considering that the people who actually use his head in order to put him in a robot body, which is what Sam said in this episode, I guess it really goes to show that no one who is part of the Dingo channel to see Charlo's gone forever. Granted, the Totally Wiles say that the head is supposed to be a mystery that no one should find, but still. And they use the head while taking pictures of it and about to show it on iCarly with high resolution pics. And they would not do it unless if they stop stealing ideals from iCarly. However, Sam gives them a punishment in order to give them the head back. At the beginning of the episode, Sam comes up with this idea to do a segment of iCarly called Bikini Dog Food Fight, while two people are wearing bikinis and throw each other with dog food, which is what Freddy said, humiliating and gross, which is the whole point of the segment. You know, for how much I don't like Sam in some of the episodes, I have to admit that this kind of idea that she came up with is actually kind of hilarious. So at the end of the episode, we get to see the Totally Wiles fight each other with dog food while wearing bikinis. And that's the punishment for stealing the iCarly's ideals. And I have to admit, that's actually kind of a good way to wrap up this episode, and a good punishment for the Totally Wiles for stealing Carly's ideals. And this is pretty much one of the smart decisions that Sam made when it comes to a segment from iCarly. Granted, most of the ideas that she did in this show is questionable, which somehow surpasses him better than Freddy, but those are episodes for a different time. There's also this mini plot involving the iCarly gang sleeping at a motel that Sam said that her mother went to, but unfortunately, due to the fact that she's mostly poor and the fact that Sam is mostly disgusting, we just get some jokes involving a guy named Hollywood and the fact that the beds and equipment is just terrible. But then again, this is Sam we're talking about. But other than that, I actually found this episode really enjoyable for the fact that it shows that plagiarizing ideals is bad, but at the same time, the bad guys in this episode are really corporate people that you will obviously have no chance against when it comes to the fact that they have a TV channel while you have a web show. When it comes to the Yellow iCarly episodes that I'm going to be reviewing, when it comes to the web show being a factor in those episodes, expect those episode reviews to happen so much sooner, because I have something in store in the next 2 months. I give this episode an 8 out of 10.
Let's get this started again. Me and my whole